Jim Roop, NBC News Radio.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Hey, it's the Paulacious One, coming to you from the file room of the basement of WCPT 820 in Chicago. Checking the file on the Sports Cubicle. The hosts, systems analyst Mike Mercado, project manager Devin Tingle, the marvelous one, Dan Marver in accounting, and me, well, it doesn't matter what I do. You can check us out, the Sports Cubicle, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Central on WCPT 820 in Chicago. Gotta go, Sports Cubicle, 9 p.m. Sundays, WCPT.
Just now, another kid dropped out of school. There's one every 20 seconds.
If we do nothing, 3.5 million kids won't receive a diploma over the next 4 years. But there is someone who can change that. You. United Way knows that kids who have a caring adult in their life are more likely to make it. So make a pledge. Tutor. Mentor. Volunteer to read with children. And the difference between a dropout and a graduate could be you. Take the pledge to volunteer now at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Tonight on Democracy Now!
Deaths in ICE custody are surging. At least 17 people have died this year. 48 have died since President Trump returned to office. We'll talk to Detention Watch Network, then caught in the crackdown as arrests at anti-ICE protests piled up. Prosecutions crumbled.
All those stories and more tonight at 11 on WCPT 820. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You are listening to Think Theory Radio. Radio. Hello and welcome to Think Theory Radio, the show that brings you topics outside the mainstream realm of thought and ideas to make you think. And I'm Damian Perdue, your... I was going to say fungal guide, but that sounds kind of strange.
You're a fun guy.
I'm your fun guide.
Yeah.
On this magical ride.
On the mycological delights.
Yes, there you go.
Mycological.
It's like fun guy. It still has always just sounded weird to me. Like, just doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Like, when I see the word, I want to say fungi for some reason. But, like, fungus sounds normal. Fungal. Fungi. I don't know why. It's like, sounds weird to me.
Yeah.
Fungi.
You're fun guy on
sometimes, most of the times.
Mycological delights.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
And that's Pauly C.
Yo.
Today the C stands for cordyceps or chaga. That's because we're going to talk about our subterranean savior.
Not shiitake or shiitake.
That's an S.
That's an S, yeah, but it's
Paul Shiitake.
Yeah.
It does rhyme with
I was
your
going to
name.
say, yeah, it sounds...
I like it. And that's today. We're going to talk about the miracle, the mushroom miracle.
It's been a while since we've done a mushroom show.
Yes, exactly. And I was reading several articles because we're in a kind of a shroom boom, as they're calling it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You haven't heard that?
No. I was unaware.
It's the mycological, what's the word? Like
sensation.
Sensation.
Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of, which we'll get into later, all like the products, being made out of fungi and mushrooms. And obviously more and more people are eating different kinds of mushrooms, using it for mental health purposes, using it for just all different kinds of health benefits, lower blood pressure, more cognitive abilities. And, you see it so much more now than I've ever seen before. I mean, you can buy like coffee creamers with mushrooms.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's mushroom coffee. There,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of meat made from mushrooms. which is cool. I mean, but you can use the mushrooms itself as meat. And I think a lot of people who don't mess around cooking with mushrooms or use, their main exposure to it is just basic like button mushrooms. But, if you grab something like a lion's mane, have you ever seen a lion's mane mushroom?
No.
It's this big, kind of looks like a head of cauliflower.
Okay.
It's about that size, like a huge, and it's white like that. But it's kind of furry.
Okay.
And it's very dense. And those, you can slice it up and make little steaks out of them. There's also, different, maitake and all the different oyster mushrooms. And so you can use, hen of the woods is another great mushroom to use as a kind of meaty texture. Which I'd say, like, instead of buying the kind of, and nothing against the mass-produced kind of like synthetic mushroom meats that there's a lot of now. You can just buy the mushrooms themselves and find recipes online to cook them and do stuff. And we'll get into a little bit of that. But I was looking up things about the tying into our past, right? And what kind of spurred the idea to do another mushroom episode was this article about how they have been finding archaeological evidence of humans using mushrooms in various ways 20,000 years ago.
Okay.
And basically tying into the fact that it was a core part of human evolution.
Huh.
Mushrooms were.
Okay.
The fungi. And there's several different like cave discoveries. And one is a very popular one that most people might know the name, Ozzy the Iceman.
I don't know Ozzy the Iceman.
You don't know Ozzy the Iceman? It was the one that was...
there's so many Ozzies to keep track of.
But it's the one that basically, what's the goofy caveman movie with Pauly Shore?
Encino Man?
Yeah, yeah. Like the unfreeze.
Yeah. Like Brendan Fraser's a caveman and he like goes to high school with Sean Astin and Pauly Shore. Yeah.
Exactly. So, it's Ozzy or Otzi. It's like Utsi or Utsi.
Okay.
It's like with the two dots, whatever that is.
The umlaut.
Yeah, there you go. So you know that, but you don't know Ozzy the Iceman.
Of course I know the umlaut.
You're much better at grammar than I am.
I took like 2 years of high school German. I should know what an umlaut is.
Well, it's a 5,300-year-old naturally mummified man discovered in the Italian Alps back in 1991, dating to the Copper Age.
Okay.
And it was discovered with, it had clothing, tools, including a copper axe. And since then, they have discovered mushrooms with him. So he had these two different kinds of mushrooms with him. And one was it's called like Fomus fomentarius or tinder fungus. And he also had Piptoporus betulinus or birch polypore, which is used for medicine. And it's good for like stomach infections, or you can use it on wounds. And he also had like a pyrite flint kind of thing. So basically he had like a little bag with the mushrooms in there. It was like a part of his arsenal. And which is, it's super interesting when you think about somebody, 11,000 years ago knew the benefits of these different kind of mushrooms, and this fomentarius or the tinder fungus, they have been finding in other caves with other human remains, and evidence too within like Hippocrates, the Greek medicinal philosopher,
Yeah.
the Hippocratic Oath comes from. He also wrote about using the fomentarius, and but yeah, so basically he had his own kind of like a fire starter kit.
Okay.
With the tinder fungus and the pyrite stick or whatever, or rock. And since they also have found, so that's one of them, Ozzy the Iceman, or Otzi. I'm saying his name right. But there's also this, what I found, just digging up. I'm like, well, what other ancient people have been found with mushrooms, tied to mushrooms? And I found this story that I've never heard of. The Red Lady, the Paleolithic Red Lady.
Okay.
Who ate mushrooms 19,000 years ago. And basically, this is the earliest physical evidence of Stone Age mushroom use. So I'm trying to find this was found in Cantabria, Spain, and an archaeological dig at El Miran, which is a cave. And this was in 2010. They discovered the remains of this ancient woman who was buried in this cave. And this is a province situated along the northern coast of the Iberian Peninsula. The woman was dubbed the Red Lady by researchers because she and a nearby stone were dusted in reddish ochre made from hematite. The cave where she was buried was named El Miron, and the place has some interesting features that imply that the people who knew the Red Lady held her in high esteem. Now, the identity of the Red Lady is not known for sure. There are a few clues that suggest she was an important member of her community. Not only was her burial site adorned with pigment that gave her the name Red Lady, but there were also flowers in her tomb and a carved grave marker near the entrance of the cave. And so it seemed like she was some kind of leader. Possibly she was sacrificed in some kind of ritual. They don't know for sure, but she definitely was someone looked up to. And she lived to the ripe old age of 30.
Oh, wow.
She was an old woman back then. So, and I'm trying to get to where they find. So she also, which, she lived during the last ice age, and she was a Magdalenian, which was a widespread and successful Paleolithic culture that thrived for several thousand years in Western Europe. And she's offering evidence that the Magdalenes also dabbled in mycophagy, or the practice of eating gourmet and medicinal mushrooms. They were eating gourmet mushrooms back then, man. Now, they do say that, her skeletal remains were disturbed by a wolf or some other large animal during her many thousands of years lying there in this cave. But they recovered a jawbone and teeth, which is where they figured out her age, 35, maybe 40. And her remains suggest that she was in pretty good health and she had most of her teeth, which was a pretty significant feat back then. Maybe that's why she was so looked up to. They're like, the Red Lady has all her teeth. But they removed and analyzed hardened plaque from the Red Lady's teeth. And in addition to remnants of plants and animals, the team also discovered mushroom spores of at least 2 types of fungi in the hardened calculus on the Red Lady's teeth. They found evidence that the Red Lady had been eating some sort of gilled mushroom in the order Agaricales, as well as a spongy-capped member of the Boletaceae family. It's not currently known exactly which mushrooms the Red Lady ate, but nonetheless a significant discovery and stands as the early evidence of wild mushroom consumption. And they don't know. It's also related to, could have been. They don't know specifically if she ate some. They were medicinal, but they were also just kind of food stuff and really tasty ones. So I think that maybe this was her last meal. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Though, this woman from 19,000 years ago.
Yeah.
New, and also the Iceman thing, and they have found in several other caves, not only, our ancestors, but also Neanderthals, evidence that Neanderthals used fungi for treatment of, bacterial infections and different things. How they knew how to use it, figure trial and error.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how, so that also ties into, now we've talked about on the show before, the stone ape hypothesis, Terence McKenna, and the idea that human evolution was kind of spurred by eating of psilocybin mushrooms, psychedelic ones, over the course of evolution.
Like expanded the creativity of the.
Yeah, maybe have because it is created a sense of individuality or contemplating consciousness. They were getting high on mushrooms, like kind of.
I think there's just a lot of hold my beer moments. I bet you
hold
can't.
My mushroom.
Yeah, hold my mushroom. I bet you can't do that. I bet you I can hold my mushroom.
Yeah. But now they're saying with these new discoveries of finding out like all the different kind of varieties of mushrooms and medicinal ones, and like I was talking about earlier with the modern use of lion's mane and cordyceps and all these different ones for cognitive health. And numerous studies have been showing that especially ones like lion's mane really help cognitive regeneration and kind of a neural, cell replacement and all this, kind of expanding the mind or expanding the brain. So not only tying in, it might not necessarily have been a stoned ape, but just a mushroom eating ape.
Mm-hmm.
And eating these types of mushrooms that helped cognitive ability, helped create new neural pathways in the brain and expanded the brain further than what it once was. And that it just tied in throughout human history, eating mushrooms and becoming a more evolved society. Right?
So, like, the cycle of humanity is like the psychedelic eras that have constantly come up of advanced society.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting thing
like the
too.
60s.
So that brings us to a couple of different things. There is these cave paintings called the Tassili mushroom figures in Tassili in Algeria, which are about 9,000 to 12,000 years old, and they're these psychedelic-looking shamans that have mushrooms all over them. Like there's mushrooms in their hands, there's mushrooms on their heads. They kind of look like they're dancing around. There's a lot of really kind of stylized details in there. It looks kind of like what you would have seen, like a 60s psychedelic painting, but from 9,000 years ago in a cave. And it's obviously just a painting, so you can't, it's speculation to say that it was representing psychedelic mushroom use back then. But if you look at the style of it and all the different mushrooms around it, and we know that ancient shamans did utilize psychedelic mushrooms, and not just in the Middle East and Greece, also in Slavic countries. This is tied in also to in Mexico. This was an ancient use. I mean, I've talked about on the show like my trips down to Oaxaca and how this is known in a lot of the indigenous cultures there, utilizing psychedelic mushrooms in ritual use. Much more spiritual practice and healing kind of thing than I use it for.
Well, why not? Can it be both?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think so. But some say no. Some say if you don't respect the mushroom, it can mess you up.
Oh, well, yeah. But I mean, I'd imagine you're tapping into a spiritual
I'd like to think so,
reconnecting
in the mind.
Yeah.
Well, and that all started, interestingly enough, in 1955 when a vice president of J.P. Morgan named R. Gordon Wasson traveled to Mexico with a photographer and ended up meeting a Mazatec curandera or medicine woman, Maria Sabina.
Okay.
And this was essentially the first time. Now, he, in the article written in Time magazine, Life magazine, I should say, based on this journey back in 1957, he claimed, the first white men in recorded history to eat the divine mushrooms, which is just not true because we know that Eastern Europeans were using it and Greek, if you want to call them, I don't know, what white and it's a whole other discussion. But let's say they're the first American white men.
Okay.
To dabble in magic mushrooms.
Okay.
Okay. And then they wrote this article called Seeking the Magic Mushrooms, which basically opened up the Pandora's box to psychedelic use of mushrooms. Now, this had already been, known, like the ergot mushroom was what was synthesized to create LSD by, Albert Hoffman. But this is really, this article is what put it in the mainstream view and essentially created the hype for kind of the beatnik movement and then the hippie movement to travel down to Mexico and try to find these psychedelic mushrooms. This article is what inspired Timothy Leary to start dabbling. I mean, before this article, Timothy Leary was a kind of straight edge dude at Harvard. He was a psychology professor. I mean, if you look up pictures of Timothy Leary before he went to Mexico and after, it's a little different.
Yeah.
And he says it too. He says when he went down, he didn't go to Oaxaca. I think he went to Cuernavaca, but had a similar experience. But it was influenced off of this article, and he said, just having a psychedelic experience on mushrooms, the one time he learned more about human psychology than years studying at Harvard. And then he came back and became the psychedelic god, I guess. I'm going to call him whatever. But that article is really what blew everything up, created the kind of new, belief system, mushrooms, the bringing it back into the popular sphere. But it also had a very negative effect for Maria Sabina because essentially her town and the state of Oaxaca were getting overrun with tourists, searching for the magic mushrooms and, like tripping and, partying everywhere and leaving their garbage and just, kind of disrespecting. Because she always was one of the belief that, you use it sacredly, use it to heal. Because she said when she met Gordon Wasson was like, that was the first time she gave somebody mushrooms who wasn't sick. And she really never turned anyone away because she just believed, well, this is kind of my calling. Even though they're not coming here for health purposes, I'm still going to guide them through these usage. But her town ended up turning on her. They burned her house down. She had to flee and move somewhere else. So it had kind of a negative impact, even though they didn't name her specifically. They changed her name in the article, but people found out who she was and everything. And it's interesting now she's celebrated down there, though. Now you go down there and you can buy like T-shirts of her, like the Che T-shirts.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Maria Sabina is like in Oaxaca down there.
Oh, crazy!
All over Mexico, yeah. So it's interesting to see that kind of. They hated her for such a long time, and now she's revered. But but so that's just a tie-in of how ancient it is. The use of mushrooms, not just psychedelic, but wild mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, has been tied into human history for thousands and thousands of years. And I think we kind of, being such a young country, kind of forgot about a lot, like many other things that Americans have forgotten about from the ancient days. We're relearning it. And that's why you see this kind of resurgence. We'll get into, in the last segment, some of the modern products that are being made with fungi and actually have parallels to what were used in ancient days as well with mushrooms. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into were mushrooms some of the original life on Earth? And mushroom music, mushroom packaging, and mushroom, right after this on Think Theory Radio.
The Sports Cubicle.
Commissioner of the American Association of Professional Baseball, Joshua Schaub.
So our players are not playing to develop to make it to the major leagues. They play for the name on the front of their jersey. They play for each other and they play to win. So the style of baseball is completely different. They're literally trying to get guys out. They're literally trying to move runners over. They're trying to win the game. So I just want to note that difference as well.
The Sports Cubicle, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. on WCPT.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. Today we are talking about our favorite fungi, the mycelium. So silly.
Are there fungi that aren't mycelium?
Yes.
Okay.
So mycelium is a part of, well, I don't know if you would say, I guess it's all connected.
They're all the same thing, I thought.
Yeah, mycelium is not necessarily, mycelium would be more considered the roots of fungi, where the mushroom is the fruiting body.
Yeah.
You know, so I believe all fungi, yes, would have mycelium, but not necessarily all mycelium have mushrooms, I think.
Yeah.
I'm no mycologist, but.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're talking about some of the ancient usage of mushrooms in different ways, but also the connection into our past of just life on Earth and how it ties into fungi. So there are these, have you ever heard of prototaxites?
No, I have not.
So there are these huge tree, like mushroom trees, fungi, massive, 24 feet tall, possibly about 9 feet wide mushrooms that existed 400 million years ago on Earth.
Okay.
And they lasted for, I want to say, like 150 million years. They ruled the Earth. And some of their first fossils were found about 130 years ago in Saudi Arabia. And they didn't know what it was. Paleontologists at the time, they didn't know it was a plant, an algae, a lichen, or something entirely different. And it wasn't until recently, in about 2007, that researchers from the University of Chicago and the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History published a paper in the journal Geology. In this one, they examined the levels of carbon isotopes in prototaxite fossils. And because plants obtain their carbon dioxide in the air, they tend to have similar carbon-12 and carbon-13 isotope ratios as other plants of the same type. Because animals consume other living things, their carbon isotope ratios tend to be similar to what they eat. The research team found that prototaxites displayed a much wider ranging isotope ratio than any known plant. So it was a fungus. And they found that they asked, how would there be such huge, fungi or mushrooms, 20 feet tall? Well, now that you could walk by mushrooms and not even see them, tiny little things. But they believed that at that time, it was a reproductive strategy to spread its spores over wider distances. Mm. And another tie-in is the fact that, did you know 90% of all plants on Earth would not exist if it wasn't for fungi?
Say that again?
90% of all plants on Earth would not exist if it wasn't for fungi.
I didn't know that.
Which essentially means there would be no life on Earth without fungi.
Yeah.
Which I think is fascinating. Because I always wonder, too, and I know, and I'm not the only one. There's a mycologist, and I think even Terrence McKenna has talked about this. The way mushrooms spread and everything is because the spores, right? So, those like, they call them like zombie fungi, and they go inside like an ant's head.
Yeah.
And they sprout and they take over. They like eat the ant's brain, or I don't know if the ant has a brain, but they take over the insect and make it like go up a tree.
Okay.
So that it can spread its spores.
Okay.
But they still don't fully understand how, because it essentially taps into the nervous system and controls the ants. This is what that TV show is based on. I can't think of the name now, but it's like the dystopian. It is based on a video game, but it's about like this,
The Last of Us.
Yes.
Or something like that? Yeah.
So this is based on that same zombie fungus.
Gotcha.
That takes over these insects, right? But scientists still don't understand how it knows where to tell the ant or where to control the ant's body or the insect. I forget if it's an ant or a different insect.
Like a beetle or something.
Yeah, but where to go.
I've been using that as like a I don't know, like an analogy or a metaphor lately. I've been using that the parasite or yeah.
So
walking the dead beetle around.
But they don't know how it does it. It doesn't, we believe it not to be conscious. We don't. How would it know which direction to go? How does it know?
Maybe just like kind of tapping, I don't know, like its brain in certain spots or something. I don't
maybe
know.
like some kind of electrical current or, I don't know. It's very interesting. You know? And we talked about on the show before too, how like mycelium underneath the ground can move when it somehow feels that there's an obstacle feet in front of it, even though it can't sense it in any terms that we understand. That there's some, postulation that it's like electrical currents or something of that nature, but we don't really know. But I kind of forgot where I was going with that. Oh, the fungus. So I was thinking about how prototaxites, some of the oldest life on Earth, and plants, and then essentially if there were no plants, there would be no humans, there'd be no animals, right? That all exist because of fungi. So what if this was some kind of like, what if, now, I'm going on, in my think theory fringe zone here. What if they are conscious in a sense, okay? And this is how they've been kind of controlling the world without our knowledge, right?
Maybe.
So this is how, because just like they take over the little ant's brain to spread its spores, they seduced us into eating them to then travel and spread their spores even more, right? Because there is one of the other tie-ins, we're talking about prototaxites and ancient mushrooms and fungi, but they've also found a new species. Well, it's an old species, but new to us now, of psychedelic mushrooms in Africa. And this was a very recent discovery of it's a new species of magic mushroom called Psilocybe ochraciocentrata. And it appears to have shared a common ancestor with the popular Psilocybe cubensis some 1.5 million years ago. So essentially, psychedelic mushrooms have been around at least as long as our ancient hominids and possibly longer. 1.5 million years ago, I think the oldest we have found is, I forget if Lucy is 2 million or 1 million years old, the ancient.
Oh, yeah.
The first human or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the first hominid. But either way, it's been around that long. Okay, so scientists and mycologists are kind of puzzled. Well, why would a plant create itself, have these psychedelic effects? Why would it create the psilocybin inside of the mushroom? What would be the purpose? It doesn't benefit the mushroom itself. It really only seems to benefit humans.
Yeah.
Which is interesting when you think about, okay, why, the evolution of that. Now, they do speculate that maybe it was some kind of defense mechanism for early animals. The animal would eat it and freak out and then never eat it again.
Yeah.
Possible, So now they believe with this finding of this new mushroom in Africa that this is probably where the original species of psychedelic mushrooms originated. And so now they're kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, how did it get to the Americas? They still don't know that. And it's been around, like I mentioned, in Mexico has been used, and it's been in, Native American use and down in South America. And it's been around here for a long time, but they don't know exactly how it traveled. They speculate it could have been on insects, wind, who knows? But it'd be interesting if it was some kind of like, we are the zombies. That's what I think, is our brain is a mushroom. It's a symbiotic mushroom that took over our bodies as primates. We were just primates. And the mushroom got in, just like it took over the ant's body, and turned into our brain. That's why our brain looks kind of like a mushroom.
Is this the whole God made us in his image thing?
Yes, mushroom is...
God is the mushroom.
God is a mushroom. And actually, that does tie into an ancient Slavic story from the Czech Republic.
Okay.
There was a sky mountain god named Perun, and his lady, our Mother Earth, the name is too sacred to be spoken, Paul.
Oh.
Don't try it.
Okay.
And they are said to have created the fungi first of all the edible plants. Now, this is an ancient myth from the Slavic region, the ancient shamans. Has been around for a long time. And this is also another area, in the Czech Republic, they utilize mushrooms for food and different purposes, but there's still shamans there that practice this, even though it was outlawed by the church a long time ago, but they still practice it in a long time. But yes, but in this ancient myth, they said they created the fungi first of all edible plants, even before the ferns and trees. The lichens came first, and then the mushrooms, and then the green plants, ferns, grasses, then trees and flowers, and garden vegetables. They created the fungi to be sacred forever. And one of the most acceptable offerings to Perun and his lady is a perfectly formed amanita, which is the red and white mushroom that you kind of, is the quintessential psychedelic mushroom image, which is why they show up on Christmas trees and all kinds of imagery, from embroidery to dinner plates in Czech Republic. Perun's lady, in bringing the human race up from the earth, created them from the earth of a fairy ring created by the propagating habit of certain mushrooms. And that's why in the Czech Republic, children are told that they were found while picking mushrooms instead of the story of storks, like we've been told. I like that one better than the stork.
Yeah.
Just a stork dropping off a kid. Rather, we found you among the mushrooms.
Yeah.
And because they were first, the spirits of the lichens and mushrooms are by far the strongest, and the mushrooms themselves are awake and aware. The Mekni Manzilka, or the moss wives, were actually the spirit of lichen, or Spanish moss, the kind that hangs down in long tendrils in evergreen forests, are shy but powerful spirits that preserve the natural balance of the forest. They drop branches on people who hurt trees and move pathways away from the feet of those who are careless of fire. The white mushrooms are sacred to them. When someone dies from a death angel, that somehow they crossed up the moss wives. Their gifts to those who are respectful of the forest are good health and long life. And then there's the Lychee,
Lychee.
Well, there's the lichen, but this is another Czech mythological name. LES with the the upside down C.
I don't know that. Yeah, they don't use that in German. Didn't learn that one.
The Lychee, the forest things. I think it makes an S do the sh sound.
Yeah,
whatever that thing is. I'm sorry to all English teachers,
linguists out there. Yeah.
The forest things protect the oaks and lindens and other deciduous trees in the same way that the moss wives do. They have the power to bind you to where you are walking and drop you off a cliff if you cut trees in their prime or ignore a dead or diseased tree in favor of a good, strong, or young tree. There's also the dead man's plant, Indian pipes, or beech drops, the fungus that grows in deep woods that can be used to cure diseases of the eyes. The shamans of the Slavic people use several different mushrooms prepared in various ways to facilitate healing and spirit journeys, very much in the same way it's used. Peyote is used by the Native Americans. However, since the old ways have been underground for about 5 centuries in the Slavic lands, many of the old techniques have been lost, and many others sufficiently corrupted by, the powers that be. But I thought that was interesting that this ancient myth, this ancient Slavic myth, talks about fungi being first, that the god and Mother Earth created the fungi first, and we have evidence that that is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See? God is a mushroom.
Maybe.
God is a mushroom. I feel like that's a song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think it's like you'd throw someone off. Like, God is a man, God is a woman, God is a mushroom.
Yeah. I'm going to start saying that. And the cool thing, too, is through learning about the ancient ties of mushrooms and how important they are to plant life and animal life, obviously, there are mycologists and scientists and researchers now really utilizing it to help preserve forests, plant life, but also, to protect us from climate change. And there's a lot of, it's becoming bigger and bigger. This is, mycology in itself, in modern terms, is not that old. It's maybe, 100, 150 years old. And even there, it was only until like the last 20 years that mycology has become a specified science. It was always kind of lumped into other, study of plants and things. But now it's becoming kind of a really separate field, and understanding how much you can use mushrooms to do things. Like in Britain and Ireland, they're using mushrooms to reforest areas. Here we're studying ways to utilize it for carbon capture, because we know that fungi is one of the best, if not just the best, natural carbon capturing element on Earth. So there's so many ways that we can use it to prevent the things that are happening now. Not only have we found that it's so effective in carbon capture, but also they have created like fungi that can kind of eat up plastic and different kind of waste too. So I think it's interesting when you think about the kind of 360, right? Now let's say it's all true, and the mushrooms were first, the fungi was first. Humans came along, it helped our evolution, whether or not through enhancing the brain, but we know for sure, evidence-based, that it helped us with creating fire and medicinal purposes and helped us along our way, okay? And now we're facing this huge crisis with the climate that it could be our savior again. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about mushroom music, mushroom art, and also what products are being made utilizing fungi and mushrooms nowadays in modern times on Think Theory Radio right after this.
Out Chicago.
Kiddos, we all need to find the courage to stand up to people when they say things that are completely wrong. Yeah. Like what Governor Pritzker said, we need to get ready. When they sound that 5-alarm fire, we all need to be up there with buckets to douse the flames.
I'm ready.
I am too.
Are you?
This flamer is ready to douse the flame, and I never like to douse my flame.
Catch Out Chicago every Sunday, 11 to 1 on WCPT 820. Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damien, and that funky music you just heard is from Paul Shivari's new album, There's a Fungus Among Us.
It's not me.
No, it's actually a band called Bionic and the Wires, and they make music by turning the electrical activity of fungi into playable sounds. And one of the creators is a Jonathan Paul Ross, and his partner Andy Kidd. They capture sounds from trees, plants, and animals. They connect biosensors to fungi and plants. The sensors pick up on bioelectrical variations that are happening in the plant and fungi. That electricity, the changes are because the plant and the fungi are reacting to environmental conditions. And the one that we just heard, I believe, is an oyster mushroom. I think is what they were using. And you can look them up on YouTube, and I believe even on Spotify and different various streaming platforms. But they've done all different kind of experiments, and they're not the only ones. I've seen other videos where cats are just in the forest connecting like beat machines to mushrooms and making different kind of music with mycelium and fungi and different plants and wood and stuff. But Bionic and the Wires have also done a painting, or they made a mushroom paint. So, in a very similar thing. So what they essentially do is they hook up these biosensors to the mushrooms and connect them to little mini kind of robotic arms with what we just heard. They have some sticks playing on a synthesizer, but they've done them different. They've done them on beat machines. They've done them with kind of utilizing different kind of sound modulation equipment and stuff like that. But in the painting one, they did essentially the same thing and just hooked up paintbrushes, put a canvas in front of it, and let the mushroom kind of just go at it. And it just, it just looks like something abstract. It's not like it painted any, like a Monet or anything like that. But it's still kind of cool. And even, they even say it's not, mushrooms aren't like musically inclined, No. They have to kind of freak it a little bit to make it sound even as...
I was going to say, it's just very percussive and it's just reacting, yes. And they just add, like, it's like a cool synthesizer effect. Mm-hmm. And like, there was even one where it's like, oh, got to add echo to it. And it's like, yeah, of course, it's going to sound all trippy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a cool experiment, and it just looks visually funny, too, when you're watching it. So if you look it up, it's kind of, there's this big sprouty mushrooms with, like, robotic arms tied to it.
Just like vibrating and
Now, if
pulsating.
If mushrooms are conscious, I wonder, like, what is it thinking? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing to me?
Well, if it can like feel, like they get like probes,
right?
It's ouch.
Yep.
That's them in pain.
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh, look at that groovy music,
right.
and it's
and
like a mushroom's
help
pain.
Me, help me!
I'm hurt.
Oh man,
poor mushroom.
Poor mushrooms. But well, if that hurts them, then all of these products we're making out of fungi really hurts them.
Oh yeah,
but they'll save us. They're sacrificing their lives for us.
They'll grow back.
Yeah, they're pretty easily to grow. Mm-hmm. See, and that's why another reason we can use it, or them, or whatever you say. But there's a bunch of different companies now that are utilizing mycelium and fungi for different purposes. And it's really interesting because you can, not only you can utilize fungi for different kind of packaging or clothes or leather, but it's also so biodegradable as well. So you can create these packaging like a kind of a styrofoam package, which will decompose naturally. And one of them, there's a woman in Cork, Ireland, Lavanya Bandari, is growing, she's, part of the future of packaging, using mycelium and fungal material that feeds on farm waste. She grows small containers in just a few days. And once formed, the lightweight and durable material protects items in transit, and after use decomposes naturally, like I was saying, returning nutrients to the soil. And mycelium, I was telling you, is the shroom boom, right? So I guess somebody's calling them, but there's very sustainable designs, and big companies like Dell began using mycelium packaging back in 2011 to ship servers. IKEA has set an ambitious target of phasing out plastic from all consumer packaging by 2028, which includes the use of mycelium to replace styrofoam. And this is, when you think of what we're up against, more than 400 million tons of plastic are produced globally each year, while less than 10% is recycled. Less than 10%. Paper and cardboard are produced in similar volumes, and while the recycling rates are higher for paper and cardboard, it's still shipped abroad for processing, which you're shipping, that's a lot of fuel waste, that's a lot of oil use, more pollution. And amid this waste crisis, mycelium could be the locally grown alternative. Because like we were saying, it's easy to grow. You can grow it anywhere. It feeds on agricultural byproducts such as brewery grain, hemp, and sawdust. Growing it in custom molds forms strong, biodegradable packaging. Once fully formed, the material is heated to stop growth and harden. So you're not going to get mushrooms growing out of your packaging, explains Bhandari. Although that would be kind of cool too, though, if you get like a double usage out of it. You know, you get a package and it's made out of some kind of mycelium package, but then you can, put that in the sun or in some soil and then you grow some maitake out of it.
Yeah.
And she's not the only one. There's several other companies. Also, she's trying to, her long-term ambition is pharmaceutical cold chain packaging, which is a major cork industry in Ireland. Pharmaceutical companies are one of the biggest users of cold chain packaging. That's the market that needs to be disrupted. She says it's going to take 5 to 10 years, but we're focusing on enhancing mycelium's properties to attack that very big market down the line. And then you have another company called Ethica Planet, based in Offaly, Ireland, represents a different kind of a transition story. The Midlands have been heavily dependent on peat extraction. The peat. and carbon-intensive industries, which are being phased out of Ireland as Ireland decarbonizes. Supported by the EU Just Transition Framework, Brendan Cleary, son of Glenisk founder Jack Cleary, is building a new industry literally from the ashes of the previous venture. Cleary had been running Ethica Foods, developing fermented oat-based yogurt alternatives, when in 2021, a fire at the Glenisk facility destroyed his operation overnight. Rather than rebuild the same business, he pivoted to an idea he'd been developing since 2020, using mycelium to process waste materials. He launched Ethica Planet after the fire with his son Pierce, a botanist, as the company's first employee. The company now has 4 employees, including a microbiologist and a designer. Ireland is swimming in a sea of cardboard, says Cleary. The company shreds this waste and feeds it to mycelium as a growth substrate, turning discarded cardboard into new mycelium-based packaging. If you make a genuine effort at home to recycle, the amount of plastic in your utility room is just scary, says Cleary. That mountain keeps getting bigger and somebody has to say stop. The only way you can say stop is if you have an alternative, and that's what we're working on. Early trials suggest the approach could be transformative. Conventional cardboard can only be recycled 7 times. But Cleary says their mycelium keeps fibers strong enough for multiple additional recycling cycles, potentially tripling conventional cardboard's lifespan. He emphasizes the need to be cost competitive, noting that the carbon negative process and lean production will help match conventional packaging prices. And I'll try and find this other one. There's another, this one's kind of cool. The Loop Living Cocoon. What do you think that is?
I have no idea.
This was developed by Dutch inventor Bob Hendricks and his company Loop Biotech. It's a sleek, pod-like coffin grown in just 7 days from mycelium feeding on hemp fiber. Hendricks, whose design for it approach has earned him a TED Talk and Vice Magazine's Human of the Year 2020, represents a new style of funeral innovation. That's what we need, man, more funeral innovation.
Right.
Traditional burials often rely on non-biodegradable coffins with plastic linings and embalming chemicals such as formaldehyde, which can linger in the soil and leach into water. By contrast, Loop Biotech claims that the coffin decomposes in roughly 45 days, while the mycelium actively aids body decomposition over 2 to 3 years, helping to neutralize toxins such as metals and microplastics. Lined with moss, the coffins are available for shipping to Ireland or elsewhere, but this is an article from the Irish Times. So, but it's that's and I know there's other kind of biodegradable coffin alternatives and ones that grow into trees and stuff like that, but just thought that was an interesting tie-in with mycelium and fungi to get you a mycelium coffin for
why not,
your last days. And I love I like that it's called the Loop Living Cocoon, but it's a coffin.
Yeah.
Because even in death, you bring life. That is one of the other amazing things of fungi. Is it's one of the only, if only, life form that thrives on death. Like it lives and dies off of itself and other decomposing life forms. So it creates life out of death, man. Some other products that are being made. We got using it for greener building materials, mycelium composites made by growing mycelium on agricultural waste can create low-cost and greener building materials, which could help reduce reliance on fossil fuel-based products in the construction industry. There's Red House Architecture says it can recycle derelict homes by demolishing buildings and mixing the remains with mycelium to create new material, a process which could also create temporary homes in disaster zones using a portable biocycler, which I thought was an interesting concept, recycling houses.
Yeah.
You know, like I've never thought of that in any kind of fashion, but pretty interesting. There's also sustainable clothing. There's clothing manufacturers are increasingly turning to mycelium to create green alternatives to leather and synthetic textiles. These could prove vital in reducing the carbon footprint of the fashion industry, one of the world's most polluting sectors. Did you know that the fashion industry is one of the world's most polluting sectors?
How so? Just all the material that they don't use?
Yeah, and also you got to think about how much resources they're using to make clothes, how much we're in such a what's the word? Where you consumer, but like when you just throw stuff away, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, we're not using clothes in the same. We go back 100 years, people had like.
They're not making them this strong, you know. Like
that is true.
A nice pair of dungarees could last you a few years.
Yeah, I mean, even like gym shoes do not last like they used to. You know.
I walk a lot, but I have to buy like 2 or 3 pairs of shoes every year. Mm-hmm. They just go bad quickly.
Mm-hmm. But MycoWorks is a leather alternative using reishi mushrooms. And this was unveiled in New York Fashion Week, hailed as Vogue as nothing short of revelatory, which is interesting because here we are back again, 360. This is an ancient practice utilizing fungi and mushrooms to make leather. There's the Amadou mushroom, which was used by the ancient Greeks, ancient Romanians, and other Slavic countries to make leather products thousands of years ago, right? They were already making leather bags, hats, all kind of different, belts, purses, whatever, out of mushrooms 1,000 years ago. And now here we are back again. And it's kind of interesting when it's like, oh my God, this is amazing and revolutionary. And it's we already were doing this. We just forgot about it. But anyway, either way, that we're coming back to it. It's a good thing. Even Adidas is starting to use mycelium-based textile. And we talked about the compostable packaging. They're like animal-free meats. You got disposable healthcare products. In a bid to address disposable plastics in the beauty industry, Ecovative Design has created MycoFlex foam, which the company says is 100% compostable. Compostable? Now that I see, that's one of those words. Anyway,
compostable.
There you go.
Yeah.
The foam could be used in anything from makeup sponges to single-use slippers and masks. And yeah, there's a bunch of different, many products are being made out of mycelium and fungi. All right, that is it for today. I want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll be back again next week and every Saturday, 6, 7 p.m. right here on WCPT 820 Think Theory Radio.
Out Chicago.
I always like to give Scott a little something on his birthday, and I like to do it on the air.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. There better be a lot of cheese in here is what I'm hoping for.
Well,
there is. You know the key to my heart is cheese. I am Midwestern through and through. You cut me, I bleed Velveeta.
We know.
I love it.
Catch Out Chicago every Sunday, 11 to 1 on WCPT 820.
NBC News Radio, I'm Jim Roop. The ceasefire with Iran again extended by President Trump. In a Truth Social post, he cited the seriously fractured Iranian government. NBC's Monica Alba